Welcome to the AEN Stories channel.
I'm the guy who knows where the extension cords live at school. If a projector refuses to wake up or somebody needs a folding table in the gym in the next 5 minutes, people look around for me. I'm not special, just reliable. I coach the 5th grade basketball skills clinic, haul mulch during the spring beautification day, and I've grilled more hot dogs than any human should. There's a joke in our house that if the school ever puts a plaque up, it'll be in the janitor's closet with my name sharpied on the back. My name is Tom. I'm 43. My son, Josh, is 12 years old and can hit a line drive to right field that makes me forget to breathe. My wife, Linda, 38, joined the PTA last fall. She said she wanted to help from the inside. I told her the inside mostly consists of spreadsheets and people arguing about whether the fun fair should have cotton candy or snow cones. She smiled the way people do when they've already decided and you're just catching up. I liked that she wanted to be part of it. Linda's good with people, quick with names, quicker with small kindnesses. When she started bringing home sign-up sheets and a PTA binder swelling with printouts, it felt like the rhythm of our life. I'd handle the heavy lifting and the "Tom, can you fix this?" moments, and she'd handle the calendar and the people who keep lists of lists. We were a team. Or I thought we were. About a month after she joined, I noticed she started using phrases like "I'm staying late to close out the raffle spreadsheet with a few parents and we're meeting behind the auditorium, quieter there." None of it sounded strange. Schools are loud. The PTA loves quiet corners. Then one Saturday, at the fall carnival, I saw her laughing with a dad I didn't recognize, tall, athletic, wearing a team sweatshirt from the high school across town. There was nothing inappropriate about it. If you'd seen a photo, you'd say, two people at a school event. I didn't take a photo. I took a breath and told myself to stop looking for a story where there wasn't one. Truth rarely explodes. It leaks. On a Tuesday, midway through January, I was loading cases of water into the staff room for the science fair when Jenna, the mom who runs half the school without ever asking for credit, stopped me by the copy machine. She wasn't dramatic. She looked like someone who had been deciding whether to talk for an hour and had finally decided to be a grown-up. "Tom, can I say something awkward?" she asked. "You've earned the right," I said, because she had. She looked down at the floor tiles. "I saw Linda yesterday behind the gym," she said carefully. "With Aaron Reed, you know, Ethan's dad, 6th grade, soccer. I only saw them for a second, and it's possible I misread, but," she exhaled. "It didn't look like a PTA meeting." The staff room got smaller. A poster for the book fair stared at me with a cartoon dragon that suddenly felt like it was mocking my life. "Thanks for telling me," I said, because that's the sentence you say when you're trying not to drop anything you're holding. "I wouldn't have said anything if it was nothing," she said. "I know what gossip can do. But I have a daughter in Josh's class and he'd want someone to tell me." I nodded. We stood there for a few seconds, two adults finding the edges of a hole. Then I carried the water to the counter like that was a thing I could still do. I didn't confront Linda that night. Or the next. I went quiet the way men do when their brain is filing everything under evidence while their heart begs for a different cabinet. She came home after PTA meetings flushed and distracted, explained herself with plausible details, kissed Josh on the head, and fell asleep fast. Thursday after school, I drove to the back lot by the gym under the pretense of checking a microphone for Friday's assembly. I didn't have a plan. I parked by the dumpster and stared at the chain-link fence and wondered whether I'd become a person I didn't like. Linda's car pulled in. She got out, phone in hand, scanning like a person looking for her team. Aaron showed up less than a minute later. No hug. No kiss. They stood close enough for the air to feel like a conspiracy. I didn't take a picture. I walked away. I went to the front office and fixed a projector. At dismissal I handed out aftercare forms with a smile so clean it squeaked. That night, in our kitchen, Linda said the meeting ran long. I said, "No problem," and dried dishes until the towel was more water than fabric. I slept like a person remembering how. On Monday, I got a DM from Jenna, PTA General Meeting Thursday 7 p.m. "If you want to address anything, that's the place." I stared at the message like it was an invitation and a dare. I thought about every story I'd heard of people making scenes and wished I didn't know how satisfying that could feel for exactly 15 seconds. I thought about Josh, about his math test on Friday and the way he gets quiet when adults are too loud. I thought about where this started, behind a school, under a banner of volunteers and trust. I decided if truth had to be told, I wanted it told where the rot had set in. I printed what I had, the message threads Linda hadn't bothered to delete, screenshots of calendar invites with strategy session and coffee, bring your laptop, with 2 winks too many, a hotel charge from a PTA regional training that had no agenda and a location 2 towns over at a place with a fireplace in the lobby. I didn't print the worst ones. I didn't need to. I'm not a prosecutor. I'm a dad who fixes microphones. Thursday night, the cafeteria looked like every PTA meeting in America, rows of plastic chairs, a projection screen with an agenda in a too cheerful font, a table with cookies no one would admit to wanting. Parents trickled in with jackets still on. Teachers sat together, united by coffee and the bond of people who had already done a full day's work. Josh sat with his friend Owen in the back with homework open as camouflage. Linda came in with a stack of handouts, efficient, her hair up the way she wears it when she needs a room to do what she says. Aaron took a seat 3 rows from the front, careful, like a man testing ice. Linda's parents showed up too. Her mother wears opinions like jewelry. Her father wears silence like a jacket that still fits. I waited until public comment. I raised my hand. People turned because I'm the guy who asks about funding the new sound system and whether we can fix the pothole by the drop-off loop. The PTA president smiled at me, relieved. Tom will say something about mulch. Hi, I'm Tom, I said into the mic. You could have cut the familiarity in the room with a plastic knife. I coach, I stack chairs, I burn hot dogs on the grill. I'm here tonight as a dad and as a husband. I swallowed. This won't take long. I could feel Linda's body go still from 20 feet away. She didn't interrupt. She stared down at her papers like her eyes belonged someplace else. I learned this week that someone I love has been meeting behind this very building, I said, keeping my voice low, boring even, like I was reading an equipment list. And that what started as a PTA introduction became something else. I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to sensationalize. I'm here because I want the truth to be said where it started. In this community. A murmur went through the room like wind finding a gap under a door. I held up the folder, not waving it, not brandishing it, just the weight of paper. I have messages and receipts, I said. I'm not passing them around. I'm not asking anyone to pick sides. I'm saying this because it involves volunteers, the time people are trusting their families with, and a boundary that matters. If we can't talk about what we owe each other here, then the word community is just decoration. The president looked like she wanted to crawl inside the agenda. The principal had the steady face principals learn in training, crisis, then process. A teacher near the back put a hand over her mouth. Someone clicked their pen twice, then stopped. Linda spoke before anyone else could. She stood, not tall, but upright. I'm sorry, she said. She didn't look at me. She looked at the floor, the way you talk to a room when you're trying to find the neutral gear. I'm sorry to my family and to this group. I let something happen where it shouldn't have. It won't continue. Her mother stood like she'd been spring-loaded. This is inappropriate, she said. This is a PTA meeting. We do not air private matters. Before I could answer, Linda's father put a hand on his wife's arm. He didn't pull. He just placed it there like a weight. It started here, he said quietly. He's right to say it here. Aaron stood then, half standing really, the guilty man's crouch. This is not the place, he managed. He didn't look at me. He looked at the exit like it might tell him what to do. It is the place, I said, still calm. Because minutes get written here. Because time is donated here. Because trust is the only currency we've got, and I can't pretend I didn't see where it was being spent. Josh stood in the back. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He closed his binder and walked to the door. Linda took a step as if to follow. He shook his head once, small, the way a kid does when he's saving the last thread of dignity he has left. He looked at me. I nodded. He waited in the hall. The president, to her credit, didn't gavel me down. She took a breath like a swimmer surfacing. "Thank you, Tom," she said. "This is painful. We're going to take a 5-minute recess." People murmured gratitude in her direction for providing a procedural life raft. During the break, no one approached me in the way you might expect. 2 teachers brushed my arm as they passed, small, unremarkable expressions of adult solidarity. Jenna stood near me and said nothing. I said, "Thanks," because the English language is short on words for that kind of moment. Linda's father came to me and gripped my shoulder. "I'm sorry," he said. The word felt heavier than the hand. Linda's mother found a target in me and then lost it and then, like a compass, swung to her daughter. "How could you let him do this?" she hissed. Linda didn't answer. She looked past her mother at the wall where the PTA keeps a corkboard of photographs, kids at the fun run, a set of ricks leaning against a fence, me in a ridiculous volunteer t-shirt carrying a box bigger than my dignity. Her face did something like breaking and then rebuilding with worse materials. Recess ended. The president did what presidents do, moved to the next agenda item with a steadiness that would win her a medal in a different war. People sat and stood and pretended to sit and stand. Someone asked about the book fair cash box. Someone else asked whether the teacher wish lists could be posted publicly. I stared at the tiled floor and listened to the hum of fluorescent lights. We adjourned. The room emptied with the awkwardness of a church after a sermon that hit too close. Linda came toward me slowly, a person stepping onto a dock that might not hold. "Tom," she said. Not a question, not a statement. A name that used to be her home. "I'm taking Josh," I said. "He's with me tonight." She nodded too fast. "Of course. I'll be in touch tomorrow," I said. "Well, figure the rest." I didn't say what the rest was. Nobody knows the math on that one. Linda's father hugged me in a way that said more than words. Her mother turned away and smoothed her coat like fabric could fix this. Aaron was gone already. He will not come to meetings for a while. Maybe ever. That's how these communities work. The ground remembers. In the parking lot, Josh stood by the old oak that eats foul balls in the fall. He had his backpack on both shoulders like a kid ready to walk a long way. "We good?" he asked, which is 12-year-old for "I need you to be steady." "We're good," I said, which is dad for "I'm balancing on a beam but I won't let you see me wobble." He got into my truck and didn't buckle his seatbelt right away. He stared at the windshield. "I'm not going home with Mom," he said. Flat. Not performative. A line. "You're coming with me," I said. "We'll go to Grandma's. She'll make too much pasta and pretend it's for her dog." He smiled the smallest smile. "She always does that." We drove. At a red light, Josh said, "Are you mad at me for leaving?" I shook my head. "No. I'm proud of you for taking care of yourself." He nodded, not fully believing me, but willing to try. At my mother's, she met us at the door with the smell of garlic and the kind of hug that makes you remember you were once a person before you became someone's father and someone else's husband. Josh ate like he hadn't in weeks. He texted his best friend one sentence, "Staying at Grandma's." The friend replied with a skull emoji and a heart, which, translated from middle school, means "I'm here." Linda texted me at 10, "Is he okay?" I wrote back, "Yes. With me." She sent, "Tell him I love him." I stared at the screen and typed and deleted 3 times. Then I sent, "I will." I did. He said nothing. He put his phone upside down and stared at the ceiling like the answer might be up there. The next morning I woke up at my mother's old guest room with the sun doing soft math on the wall. I made coffee that tasted like every Saturday of my childhood. Josh patted in with bed hair and a look that tried to be brave and landed on tired. "Can we go hit?" he asked. We went to the park. He smacked line drives into the outfield and didn't say a word for 20 minutes. When he finally stopped, he leaned on the bat and said, "I hate every adult." I said, "Same," and he laughed hard enough to catch his breath. Later that day, I drove back to the house to pick up clothes. Linda was at the kitchen table with a legal pad. She looked like she'd been writing apologies to the drywall. She asked me if we could talk. I told her we could, but not long. We covered the logistics first because that's what families do when they are held together by schedules and hope. Josh would stay with me for a few days. We'd text him separately but agree on what we asked. We wouldn't use him as a courier. We'd see a counselor. She'd call her parents. I'd call mine. We would not lie. Not to anyone. Not anymore. She said, "I'm sorry," in a way that sounded like a person trying to fit a river into a cup. I said, "I know, because forgiveness is a different currency and I didn't have any on me." I didn't ask for the why. I knew the why is always too complicated for a Tuesday. Loneliness, attention, the thrill of being seen by someone who hasn't watched you fold laundry for a decade, pick your poison. It doesn't reverse the car. At school the following week, the hallways behaved like hallways, kids moving in clusters, teachers with a stack of papers and a tone that gets a certain level of attention, the principal walking with a purposeful half-smile that says everything is fine even when the copier is smoking. The PTA president sent a message to the board, "We're reissuing the code of conduct for volunteers. All meetings must be scheduled and recorded. No off-campus one-on-ones." Someone replied with a thumbs up. Someone else asked if we could add a line about using school time wisely. The subtext did not require translation. Jenna caught me near the office and said, "You were brave." I said, "I was done." She said, "Sometimes that's the same thing." Linda's father came by my mother's to bring Josh a new glove, which was really an excuse to check on me without dishonoring my pride. On his way out, he said, "You did right." He paused at the door, hand on the frame, and added, "I wish I had, when I was your age." It hung there. I didn't make him fill the silence. Some gifts don't need wrapping. Linda's mother called me once. She started with, "You ruined our granddaughter's school," and I said, "No, I didn't," and she hung up. I don't know what story she's telling herself. I know the one I'm telling our son. You can tell the truth without making yourself a weapon. You can say what happened where it happened and then step back before you become the story. There isn't a clean ending. There never is. Josh still splits his time, though it's more time with me right now because that's what he asked for and the court of common sense agreed. Linda and I talk through a counselor with a soft voice and a hard spine. Sometimes we leave that office and sit in the car for 5 minutes before turning the key because starting an engine still feels like a decision you have to mean. Aaron moved his kid to a different soccer club. I don't wish him ill. I don't wish him anything. At the spring fair, I grilled hot dogs again. Kids came through in packs with tickets sticking to their cheeks. Josh ran the prize wheel with his friend, taking a certain joy in telling people, "Try again." Linda worked the book table with 2 other moms. She didn't look at me often. When she did, it wasn't a call for help. It was a nod from across a river. Near the end of the night, Josh came over smelling like cotton candy and triumph. "Can we get one of those big lemonades?" he asked. "Sure," I said. We stood in line, father and son, the world briefly narrowed to sugar water and ice. A dad behind us said, "Hey, Tom, thanks for saving the sound system last week." I said, "Anytime." He clapped my shoulder. The lemonades were served in cups the size of flower pots. Josh took a long drink, wiped his mouth with his sleeve, and looked at me like he was 16 and 6 at once. "We good?" he asked again. "We're good," I said. I meant it more than I did the first time. On our way out, the PTA president grabbed the mic and said, "Big thanks to our volunteers, especially Tom, who makes half this happen." People clapped. The sound wasn't for me as a man whose marriage is on a ledge. It was for the guy with extension cords and a pocket knife and the stubborn belief that a school is only as strong as the people who show up when it's awkward. We walked to the truck. Josh looked up at the flag whipping over the ball field, then at the lit windows of the cafeteria, then at me. "Why did you say it there?" he asked. He knew. He wanted to hear it. "Because that's where it started," I said. "And because I wanted to tell the truth without yelling." He nodded like a person who didn't like the answer but respected it. He climbed in, slammed the door in a way that made the truck say oof, and buckled his seatbelt. I started the engine. We pulled out onto the road past the sign with the school's name in changeable black letters. Someone had put up "Thank you volunteers." The V was a little crooked. It made me stupidly happy. I don't know if this is the part of the story where the marriage survives. I know it's the part where the dad does. Where the kid sees an adult refuse to make a secret out of a wound. Where a school hears the truth in its own room and keeps going, because that's what schools do, they keep going. And on Monday when the bell rings, I'll be there early with the extension cords, finding outlets, making sure the microphones work, trying to leave every room a little more honest than I found it. Thank you for listening my story. If you want more raw, real, and gripping stories like this one, subscribe to the AEN Stories channel. Your support keeps these stories alive.